Hey, how's it going? So I released the demo a few weeks ago, and I would say that it went okay. I definitely got a lot of feedback from people, and some of the feedback got me thinking a lot about whether I misjudged the difficulty in the game. Considering most of the Let's Plays I've seen, a lot of people couldn't make it through the beginning section of the graveyard. There were a bunch of questions rolling around in my head, like what is it that makes it difficult for people? Am I too good at my own game? Or is it that there's some kind of skill mismatch between the game and the player? And so a lot of the feedback got me thinking about what it is that my intended experience for the game is, as well as the kind of person that would enjoy this kind of game. In 2017, I went to a talk at GDC called Why Dark Souls is the IKEA of Games. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I really recommend this video, like if you're struggling to figure out who your intended audience is. But in it, he talks about the concept of fit, and how IKEA is everything to few people. For instance, he says that IKEA is targeting young or working professionals that are still earlier in their careers, so they can't dictate their own hours, and they are price sensitive but not time sensitive, since they would need to construct the furniture themselves. And so the customer is looking for these specific things that fit exactly what IKEA is selling. And a lot of this is in retrospect. I don't really believe that FromSoft actually had these plans when they were first releasing Dark Souls, or Demon Souls for that matter, considering Shuhei Yoshida, an exec at Sony, famously played Demon Souls for 2 hours and said this game is crap and refused to publish it outside of Japan. But when you think about the target audience of Dark Souls, that they are a hardcore gamer that enjoys discovery, they love the feeling of pushing the boulder up the hill like Sisyphus, they want depth in their lore, and they want thrilling and menacing experiences like when you fight the gaping dragon. Compare Dark Souls to any of the other games that came out that year, like Uncharted 3 or Batman Arkham City. It definitely made a big impression on a small amount of people, and it definitely fit that niche very well. And so when I mentioned in the first or second devlog that I would like to make a game that I would want to play, in a way that sort of describes my taste for difficult games. I grew up playing a lot of old games like Super Ghouls and Ghosts and Castlevania or Contra, and I find myself always craving these kinds of experiences. And when you're catering to a niche of people that enjoy difficult games, you're undoubtedly going to get a lot of criticism on how exactly you should make the game easier for people who may not like difficult games. And thinking about the completion rate for a lot of difficult games, only about 30% of people beat Sekiro, and only about 36% of the people that own Dark Souls actually completed it. And so when I think about the intended experience of the game, I go back to the principle of tough but fair. But what is fair for one may not be fair for another, and a lot of people have different tolerance for difficult games. Like a lot of people rage quit and never come back. And from my point of view, I think that's okay if you are catering to that niche. And I'm not saying that you should not listen to criticism whenever someone feels that something is unfair. You should definitely think about it, as well as really understand what it is that makes it unfair for that person. How does that person feel about certain placement of enemies, for instance? And so I decided to replay a few games with the mindset as if I were playing it for the first time. Not really knowing anything about this game at first, you would think that maybe you would have to climb up there first. After all, a previous game that I've played, Ocarina of Time, anytime you're in prison, you have to look around and hookshot your way out of it. But I don't seem to have a hookshot, so I'll just pillage this corpse instead. Oh, a message? That's probably not important at all. I'm just gonna run down this hallway and not interact with anything or look around. What's up with all these guys standing around? They're not doing anything. They're not NPCs, I can't interact with them. I'm just gonna go see what's through this door. Whoa, what is that? Oh, I can't hit him. Oh, I do so little damage with this sword. This game is so hard and unfair. Oh, I died. Oh, I respawn all the way back here. I guess maybe I should read the messages. All right, camera controls. Attack. Let me look around. Oh, look, there is a demon here. Strong attack. Hold B to dash. Target lock. Rest at a bonfire and recover HP. But there is no bonfire. What do I do? Oh, look, it says light bonfire. Alright, let's try this again. What does this message say? Get away. Oh, where do I go? Where do I go? Oh, I'm trying to get away. Oh, this door is locked. Oh, maybe I can get through here. Get your shield. Okay. Oh look, it's a shield. What does this message say? Arms icon change equipment. There are no developer messages that tell you how to block, as far as I've seen. Backstep. Let me try to get this item. Oh, it doesn't seem that I can do it. Okay, what's down here? Oh, I'm right back at the bonfire. Okay, let me make my way back up here. Let's go up these stairs. Ah, I didn't see that coming. Why didn't they warn me that there was gonna be a rolling ball? The door's locked. Oh, looks like the rolling ball made a hole in the wall. Who's this guy? Estus flask. Okay, what does that do? And a key. Okay, maybe that'll open that door. Rest at a bonfire to replenish Estus flask. Well, he just said it's an undead favorite, and the game hasn't really, at this point, explained to me what exactly it is. And I think most people that played this game at first probably did not read the descriptions of the items. At least I didn't at first. And there wasn't really a developer message that explained that it was a healing item. Okay, wield, two-handed, kick, and jump attack. Resting at bonfire revives enemies. And so now you have 2 swordsmen and 1 archer. And the game still doesn't have a developer message that tells me that I need to hold the shield up. And so combining 2 enemies together, 1 ranged and 1 melee, is a thing that this game does a lot. And the question is it fair? I think so. And then it tells you about the parry system. And so with that knowledge, you go and fight the boss. You do your plunging attack, and you defeat the boss. And thus ends the tutorial section. And arriving at Firelink Shrine, you get a message saying, in Lordran, level up and kindle at bonfires. What exactly does that mean? It's not really explained. What does kindling at a bonfire mean? What does reverse hollowing mean? I got humanity. What does that do? Who is this guy? This guy very cryptically tells me about 2 bells of awakening and that I have to go ring them. Other than that, I have no idea where to go. So I make my way to this section, which has a bunch of skeletons, and my attacks don't really seem to be doing much. Man, this game is so unfair. Why would they put such difficult enemies right at the beginning? There must be some kind of trick to this. Oh, that's a huge skeleton. Oh, died. Okay, let's try this again. Let me go down this other path that does not lead to a giant skeleton. What is this, some kind of dark cave? The catacombs. Oh, a skeleton. Let me just use the same technique on him. What the hell? Oh, an exploding head. I'm just gonna try to run through this and see if I can make it anywhere. Oh, I died. Man, this game sure is hard. Let me try going somewhere else. Let's see, what's down here? Oh, some kind of lift? Alright, what's down here? A transient curse? What does that do? Alright, what's up here? What the hell? These ghosts are coming out of the ground, and I can't do any damage to them? Oh, I'm dead. Well, there were no developer notes anywhere that told me that I need to use a transient curse in order to be able to hit enemies that are ghosts, so maybe that's not the way to go. So I will go up here. These guys take 2 hits to kill, and this guy takes 3 hits, all while a guy is throwing fire bombs at me. Another guy with an axe comes up, and then another guy comes down the stairs to attack you. Is that considered good placement? Is that considered fair? Further down, you come across a situation where you have 3 melee guys that each take 2 hits to kill, but also block your attacks, all while there's a ranged guy shooting arrows at you. So there is a lot going on here, and you have to manage your stamina. The game constantly throws challenges at you in order to test you if you understand how the mechanics work. So you fought several kinds of swordsmen up until now, but you've never fought a guy with a spear, and their behavior is to block all the time. And so you sort of need to bait them in order to do an attack so you can get in a few hits. And when and if you die to those guys, you would start back at the Firelink Shrine. Ah, I'm all the way back here, damn it! Now I gotta make my way all the way back there, damn it! This game is so hard. Oh look, there's a bonfire here. In the Undead Burg, you'll come across a situation where you find this guy, the Black Knight. It's a very difficult enemy, especially for beginners, and placing him in the first area sometimes can feel like a beginner's trap. Now the question is this fair? I think it's fine, but some people may not agree. The feeling that this game is trying to evoke is that sort of sense of just barely surviving, which also kind of reminded me of a lot of the old school survival horror games, or the original Diablo, where the game was so difficult that every little piece of gear that you did find actually mattered towards progressing. So then when you finally are able to achieve that victory, it feels good. There's a lot of ambushes in this game, and could lead to dangerous situations if you're not careful. And the problem is, most new players are not going to be as careful because maybe they still don't have a good grasp on the mechanics of the game. They don't know the enemy's animation sets or how the bosses are going to attack. And they also don't know that crossing this bridge bridge will cause a dragon to come down and breathe fire. And they also don't know that if you go underneath the bridge, there are 3 rats there that will poison you. And thus far, I believe I still have not gotten anything to cure poison. And so the question is that fair? I think it's fine, but some people may not agree. After getting poisoned by the rats and dying, you know they're there now. So you know the dangers of being hit by them. And then after surviving that, oh, what's up these stairs? Oh, what the Black Knight started, the poison finished. And then you come across this room with a giant armored boar, a bunch of archers, a spearman, and a bunch of swordsmen. And once you die in this section several times, you start to form a strategy. You start thinking, maybe I'll take out this enemy first, and then that enemy, and then you go up around and try to take out the archers, and then figure out what to do with the boar later. And once you take out the archers, you come across an item called Alluring Skulls. And once you read the description, you can actually piece together that you can throw this item at the fire and lure the boar in order for him to set himself on fire. I found this to be very strange when I first played it, but thinking about it a bit, it was not really that much different than any of the obscure puzzles in the Resident Evil mansion. But how is anyone supposed to figure this out? Is this fair? And so after defeating the boar, you come across this guy who's running away from you in order to lead you towards an ambush. And so that is another instance where you ask, is that fair? And after getting through that section, you come across this hall that if you turn one direction, you come across a really difficult enemy, and if you turn the other, you come across a shield spearman. This is yet another ambush. And if you're lucky to survive that ambush, you'll come across your first blacksmith, where you can upgrade your weapon for more damage. And what's down here? Surprise, another difficult enemy. You might also come across a situation, and FromSoft really loves doing this. You have a guy at a doorway, and then once you go through the doorway, they'll ambush you from the side. So I raise the question again, is that fair? Is it not on me to be more careful and know the mechanics well enough to be able to survive that kind of ambush? There's also these summoner guys that buff up the dreglings that also ambush you in a rather narrow hallway that if you swing your sword, you might be hitting the wall instead of the enemy. So maybe the solution would be to use your thrust attack instead of a swing attack. And after all that, and you get to the top of the tower, you start fighting this bell gargoyle who kills you, and you have to restart all the way back to where the bonfire is. And you have to make your way past all the enemies and go all the way back up. And while fighting the bell gargoyle, if you get him to half health, another one ambushes you. And so, again, is that fair? And again, I think it's fine. This is the kind of game it is. It is a game that always keeps you on your toes. It keeps throwing different ambushes at you and tries to get you to learn the mechanics and how the enemies work. The constant challenges that the developers keep throwing my way keeps the gameplay very fresh. This is also one of the reasons why Elden Ring, despite being an open world game, felt very fresh throughout the entire thing. There was a lot of enemy variety, there was a lot of different kinds of traps and ambushes. And if you played other action games before Dark Souls, like say Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, which don't really have stamina meters, and you have animation canceling, it might feel clunky that you have to commit to an attack animation. This kind of system prevents spamming attacks and forces you to be careful and take the proper precautions so you have a bit of stamina left to do an attack or dodge roll. And if you don't engage with the mechanics properly, then you will end up losing. Another game that I replayed a little bit of is Mega Man 11. This game is very retro style in that it still uses a life system. So in the normal mode, if you die twice, then you start the level over again. And despite how difficult the gameplay might be at first, I know the rules going in, and I know the consequences of me playing poorly. I know that I would have to restart the level, so that increases that tension. And this game doesn't really feel like it has a tutorial. You are for some reason able to shoot through the blocks, but you can't walk through them. Sometimes the falling blocks that have a particle effect before they fall down don't show up. And since precision is very important in this game, and you're punished so severely that you have to start the level over again, unless you get to the one checkpoint about halfway through the level, would this game be considered fair? You have to go through a lot of different obstacles and through two mini bosses in order to get to the boss of this level on only 2 lives. And there are a lot of weird platforming situations that I can get myself into, like this one for instance. And there's many different situations that on first try you're probably not going to be able to make it through. Like check out this section where these mazes drop down. I don't think that most people would figure this out on their first try. And that's okay because this is the kind of game it is. You keep trying and trying until you succeed. Another game that had a big influence on me as a kid was Super Ghouls and Ghosts. This was actually the first game I've ever owned, and it was very surprising to me that it would make a list of the hardest games for Super Nintendo. And I'm guessing that because this was the first game I've ever played, that my perception of difficulty is a bit skewed, but I don't really find it to be that difficult. It's certainly doable with enough practice. Of any of my favorite difficult games, Cuphead is probably the only one that has an easy mode, and the way they handle it is quite interesting. In some instances, it seems like the boss's health is lowered, and also they remove several phases so you're not actually able to see all the content. And you can't actually beat the game unless you beat it in normal. And it appears that of all Cuphead owners on Steam, only 13.8% have actually completed it in normal. And it seems that despite its difficulty, it still sold around 6 million copies as of 2020, according to the wiki page. So I think my takeaway from looking at all of this is that there's still a niche of people that enjoy difficult games. And I think that my goal is going to be to cater towards that niche and try to be tough but fair. There were a lot of really great suggestions around hitboxes that I've been able to fix up and patch into the demo. And I did make an easy mode for the demo for people who just wanted to have a casual experience. I think part of the issue is that people maybe did not expect the game to be this difficult just based on the visuals. Like, it has a cartoony and cutesy aesthetic to it, but then again, so did Cuphead and so did Mega Man. And that inviting aesthetic brought people in, and I basically told them,
I'ma whoop your ass. And then I'ma whoop your ass.
So I understand that there might have been some frustration with that, and I'll definitely take some of the advice into account going forward, but I'd rather err on the side of difficult and try to pull it back a bit than just go completely easy and make it harder later. And if you thought the demo was hard,
You haven't seen anything yet.